The Pistons set an NBA record for most losses in a season this year, but better to be a Pistons fan than root for the Brooklyn Nets. By far, the worst future in the NBA. Already non-competitive, can't even make the play-in the East, but unlike other crap teams, they can't just tear it down because Houston owns all their picks the next 4 years. Oh, and their best young player is Cam Thomas. Not saying he sucks, but not a future MVP. Other teams like the Pistons or Wizards or Blazers have good young talent picks or both. Brooklyn got a lifeline. The Rockets called them up and said, "We will give you multiple picks back and young Jaylen Green for Mikal Bridges." Now, Bridges looked like a star last year, has dipped recently. Not a perfect trade, but a chance to control your own future and give the fans hope.
And I'm told they discussed the concept around Jaylen Green and multiple first-round picks. That deal was not accepted by the Brooklyn Nets. That didn't progress anywhere.
What? How is that even possible? You'd think they learned from the last time this happened? In 2010, the Nets were bought by the richest man in all of Russia, Mikhail Prokhorov. He was the first non-American owner in league history and was kind of crazy. Dude ran for president of Russia in 2011, which is dangerous on its own. But he would have kept running the team if he won. But he lost and turned that ambition to the NBA. Prokhorov ordered his GM to trade for superstars no matter what. The result was one of the worst deals in NBA history. The Nets got Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce plus filler for control of 4 first-round picks. Unfortunately, KG and Pierce were already out of their prime and won just 1 playoff series together. When they left, the Nets became one of the worst teams in the league, but the Celtics had their pick and drafted both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. To this day, the C's are dominating the NBA from that trade over 10 years ago. But in 2019, they got bailed out. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving joined the Nets out of nowhere and went for another star trade. The Nets dealt Jarrett Allen, Karis LeVert filler, and control of 7 first-round picks for James Harden. This looked like a championship deal, but had even worse results than the KG Paul Pierce trade. The Nets' Big Three played a total of 16 games together in 2 seasons. They also just won a single playoff series. But can you believe the Nets put Jarrett Allen in that trade instead of DeAndre Jordan? DJ hadn't been a good NBA player for years at that point, and Allen quickly became an all-star in Cleveland. Oh, but Jordan was KD and Kyrie's buddy. Now, I don't completely blame their GM Sean Marks for that because you always say yes to superstars like Kevin Durant, especially when they saved your franchise by picking you in free agency. But turning down the Rockets trade is unforgivable. The Nets would have gotten back at least 2 of their own first-round picks. Didn't they learn how bad it can be when they missed out on Tatum and Brown? But the reason they said no was Jaylen Green. Green was the number 2 pick in the 2021 draft, 1 behind Cade Cunningham, just in front of Evan Mobley and Rookie of the Year Scotty Barnes. Jaylen had good scoring numbers as a rookie, 17 points per game. The highlight was dropping 32 over LeBron and the Lakers with 2 dagger threes in OT. But that scoring was inefficient. Jaylen hit just 43% of his shots. His second year improved to 21 points per game, but the inefficiency got worse. Jaylen dipped to 41% from the field. League average is 48%. For all-stars, more like 50. His coach was soft-spoken Steven Silas, and losing was becoming part of the Rockets' culture. Green was surrounded by other young and experienced players, except for John Wall. He got there as part of the Russell Westbrook trade to DC. So Wall got on a podcast in 2022 and said the organization was ruining their young stars.
Don't get used to this shit. It's not how the NBA is. Like I always talk to Jaylen Green, Kevin Porter, this shit y'all getting away with over here. You go to any other teams, you'd be out the league. You wouldn't play.
You're not playing.
I wouldn't play.
No facts.
So I'm trying to explain that to them because they think it's sweet. And I'm like, if you ever get traded and go somewhere else, you can be like, this motherfucker was right.
But Jaylen didn't have to get traded. Last offseason, the Rockets fired Silas and hired Ime Udoka, which is kind of like if your mom married a strict stepdad from the military. The party is over, young man. After playing starters minutes the first month or so, Green's minutes dipped from 32 to 28 per game. Played as little as 19 minutes some nights, like a role player. The low point was mid-December. Jaylen scored just 9 and 5 points and was benched in back-to-back fourth quarters. Ime doesn't care how high you were picked or what your potential is. Are you a good NBA player? I told Jaylen I benched you because a bad shooting night affects your entire game. Meanwhile, Alperen Şengün was becoming the franchise player. But that was supposed to be Jaylen. He was the number 2 pick. Şengün was number 16, not even the lottery. And he runs with silly little T-Rex arms. But the numbers didn't lie. Alpi was dropping 21 points, 9 boards, and 5 assists a night, running the offense like a baby Jokic. It was around this time the Rockets called the Nets about that trade. Bridges is in his prime now, and Houston wanted to push for the playoffs, but the Nets saw Jaylen and said, no thanks. But the Rockets could make the postseason anyway, without their best player. In early March, Şengün came down hard on his ankle, had to be taken off in a wheelchair, and was viciously hit by a towel on his way out. But instead of collapsing, Houston has won 12 of their last 13 games. On the verge of kicking Golden State out of a play-in spot, their superstar is now Jaylen Green. Dude is on fire, dropping 29 points, 7 boards, and 3 assists on insane efficiency. In fact, he is the second leading scorer in the NBA without Şengün to only Jason Tatum. Now, I am not ready to say that the Rockets need to split up Jaylen and Alpi. Some people say, oh, well, Jaylen needed Alpi gone to open up space. But first of all, it's only been like a month. Also, look at the schedule. They have beaten the Spurs twice, Blazers twice, Wizards twice, and the tanking Jazz. It's still impressive, but baby Jokic is way too valuable, and it's a small sample. I do know, though, that the Nets royally messed up. They could have had 22-year-old Jaylen Green, then traded Dorian Finney-Smith and like Cam Johnson for more picks and players, but had their own picks back to rebuild? This is one of the dumbest moves in NBA history, along with other things the Nets have done. At first, maybe you blame KD and Kyrie, but no, they have the worst future in the NBA and no one but themselves to blame. But I also have to say how lucky the Rockets are that Brooklyn turned them down. They would have given up on Jaylen Green just before he broke out and given their picks back for Mikal Bridges. Also, did you know this same GM offered Victor Oladipo a 2-year max contract, but Depot turned that down and was never the same again? I guess better lucky than good for the Rockets front office. But speaking of high draft picks, people say that the 2024 draft sucks. They say it so much, we don't even know who these kids are. So I looked at who could potentially be the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft and where that kid might go.